Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, always glad to have you with us. And today we're going to talk about a company probably more associated with northern New England than southern New England, but there's a good reason to be having this discussion today, and that is L.L.Bean. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by L.L.Bean President and CEO Stephen Smith. Steve, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ted. Appreciate it.
So you come in jeans, which I love. You're very authentic today.
Yeah.
You're ready for this. So as I said, we have a reason to be here, which is L.L.Bean opening its first retail store in Rhode Island. Some folks might not even realize you've been on this retail kick in recent years, but this will be the first one in Rhode Island here at the Garden City Center. Take us into that decision. Why did you guys decide up at headquarters, time to have a Rhode Island store?
Yeah, so we've been slowly rolling out retail now for a couple of years, and we obviously have a catalog business and a direct mail business, so we're able to see where our customers are coming from and where there is demand for our stores. We send our real estate team out with that data, looking in different markets as to where there are opportunities where we don't have a physical presence. Rhode Island's been on the wish list for a long, long time. L.L.Bean it's a national company, but we're obviously incredibly strong here in New England and just hadn't had a presence in, as you said, in southern New England. And so having an opportunity to come along in Rhode Island is fantastic for the brand.
And you mentioned the real estate team. I know we've talked with retail folks before. Hugely important to pick the right place in terms of your footprint when you're a retailer and you're picking brick and mortar spots. Were there any specific reasons Garden City Center stood out for you as you looked around, decided this was the right, L.L.Bean was a good position for that?
Yeah, I don't have the specifics on exactly why Garden City, other than I know that it's a fantastic mall. It's very successful, has good sales per square foot. Our real estate team has very clear parameters when they're picking a site, and it's based on drive times in and out of that site. It's going to be about the competitive set that's in there, the sales per square foot that others are getting, and all of that ultimately goes into our model and makes a site particularly desirable, and it made the cut.
So you obviously want to get people into that store, and you have more than boots if you go into an L.L.Bean retail store. I've been to the Mansfield one, so I have a sense of that.
Yeah.
Talk people through, make your pitch. Why should people head down to this new L.L.Bean store once it's up and running?
Yeah, so we definitely have more than boots, but I will say, first of all, we have boots. So we haven't been able to say we have boots for many months.
You were down. How big was the back order?
We had a
Christmas?
6-month back order.
Wow.
So we hit back order in late November. We started back order, and we didn't get out of back order until May. And then actually we didn't get our retail stores in stock on boots until just 2 weeks ago. So we do actually have boots, which is great.
Now let's pivot just 1 second. We'll go right back to the store. But on the boots, CEO, you must have your hair on fire a little. That's your marquee product, but it's partly because you're still making them in Maine, right?
Yeah. It's actually a great problem to have, and it's a problem that I don't mind having. I'll give you a couple answers on what we're going to do to relieve some of the pressure, but they're made in Maine, and they're handmade in Maine, in our Brunswick manufacturing by our associates and employees there who the average length of employment with us is 17 years for those folks who work in that manufacturing facility. So we've got great jobs in Maine. They're handmade, even though there's 40 competitors who knock off the bean boot, the duck boot, whatever you want to call it. We're going to always make them in Maine. And it's simply human capacity. So there's capacity of making the molds for the bottom of the boot, but then they're hand cut and hand stitched. And so we're at 650,000 pairs is what we'll be able to do this year. We have authorized the plan to get to 1 million pairs of bean boots, and I'd like to use the boots to enter other markets and enter other countries. But it's a good problem to have, and it's what keeps the boot desirable, is that it's not made somewhere else. It's still with all the same history and heritage the company came from.
So the boots will be there now when you walk into Cranston, which is good.
Yep.
What else will people find?
Yeah, so Bean is, and for those who've been to Freeport, and actually here in Rhode Island, a lot of folks have made the pilgrimage up to our Freeport store. We have about 150,000 products available. And so what you'll see in the Cranston store is sort of the smartest selection out of that overall assortment for Rhode Island. So you get great casual apparel, so your Oxfords and khakis and jeans and all. Stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, which will be popular here, obviously with Narragansett Bay. And then there'll be, an assortment of camping and fishing gear. And then a bunch of new products and new categories that I'm excited about, sort of our active wear, which is, can be tights and sort of wicking and sun protection clothing for men and for women and kids. But you get sort of a a smattering of that assortment that you see in Freeport boiled down to what's relevant for here.
So that's interesting, though. Yeah. So you'll decide. Well, Rhode Island has a lot of kayakers because water is everywhere in year-round. So you guys will take a look at that when you decide what to put into each of these stores.
Absolutely,
when you open them?
absolutely. We have to be right for the market, and we spend a lot of time. And the retail team has a great merchandising team that's looking at it again because we can see what are we already selling in Rhode Island. We already have that data, and we can see what are the most popular products, and then what do we want to put into that store.
And Garden City, I believe it's your 28th store outside of Maine.
That's correct.
Brick and mortar store. It might be actually counterintuitive to people that you're opening brick and mortar stores, not only because they know you from the catalog and now from your website, but also everything's digital these days. I think you yourself have been an e-commerce guy. You know a lot about that, yet Bean's making this bet on retail. Why is that? What's the thinking?
Yeah, there's a couple pieces, and one, I don't mean to sound flip, but we only have 28. So we're not overexposed from a physical retail perspective. And also, as e-commerce has boomed, it's actually morphed into omni-channel, which is really about you need to be everywhere that a customer wants to be. And that means you must have an e-commerce platform, you must have a mobile platform, and there are a lot of customers who want a physical retail presence. They want to be able to touch and feel a product. When you look at the categories that we're in, these are things that people generally like to interact with. You want to feel fabric. You want to get fitted into a kayak. You want to sit on a bike before you buy it. So there is a component of our brand where we've got to have that physical presence so that people are able to go in and, if you're going to enter a new sport, if you're going to enter stand-up paddleboard, you're not just going to go online and buy the board. You need to go in and talk to somebody. The other component for us is we are based and built on customer service. And so our people sell the brand and sell our products, and we are vastly more successful even in our online business when we have a physical presence in that same market. So when we put a store somewhere, the entire trade area will grow for sales, even if it's an online only customer, because they're able to interact and see the brand more.
And you point out, 28, you're not exactly Walmart or CVS yet in terms of a retail footprint at 28. What's your thinking looking forward? We're talking 2016. Do you want to double that? How many more do you want to add, or do you guys just sort of decide as it comes along?
Yeah, so we have had, historically we have had very clear plans on number of stores by number of years. I'm not a big proponent of that. I think it's dangerous to pick a number of stores because then you're incented just to close deals. And for us, I think we need to have the right stores in the right markets, and if it takes a little bit more time, that's okay. We will keep growing our retail presence. I would like to experiment with some different formats out west and try some different things, but we'll continue to grow. I think we're opening 4 this year. We've got in the plan 7 next year, and so we'll keep growing, but we'll be really careful about how we grow. To your earlier premise, retail is, it's a bit of a distressed industry, so we need to be really careful when we open those physical stores.
What do you think, I was reading the other day about one of your competitors, Land's End, which has had not the easiest time maybe in recent years. L.L.Bean seems like it's had a better time in recent years than there's a lot of competition in this outdoor space, and yet it seems like Bean's found some things that work a lot better than some of your competitors. What do you think is, obviously you'll say we have great products and great people, but is it just as simple as that, or are there specific things that you think have been extra helpful for L.L.Bean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't and won't comment on competition, so I don't know how they've gotten to where they've gotten. For Bean, and coming in just new to the organization, the values of the business are incredibly strong, and we know who we are, we know who our customers are, and we're not trying to be anybody else. The one beautiful thing about L.L.Bean is it's incredibly authentic and incredibly genuine brand, and that's inside the corporate office or outside to customers. And I think with that, we really stay in tune to what our customers want and what our customers need. And all of our merchants and all of our operators are always thinking about our core customers, bringing in new customers, but staying very true to the mission, which is, we are family owned, so we've got very strong values that are cultural values that come through the organization. And then this, sort of unwavering commitment to do the right thing for our customers. And that, I think, has helped us. I mean, Bean has definitely had ups and downs and, sort of flat spots, but I think it's true of anywhere in business. If you stay focused on your customer and you don't get overly swayed by trends and things that are hitting you from different areas, you can have a nice, strong, steady business. And that would be my initial sort of reaction.
And some good advice to other business folks. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk much more with Steve Smith. He's president and CEO of L.L.Bean. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and we're talking today about one of probably the best-known brands we've talked about on this show, which is L.L.Bean, the famous Maine outdoors and more store that's been around more than 100 years now. We're talking with the president and CEO, Stephen Smith, as he prepares to open a new store in Cranston. Steve, I mentioned the history there a little, but I want you to tell a little more about it. It's a fun story about how things started. 1912,
Correct.
I believe, there was an actual L.L.Bean. There was a person, and he got this whole thing started. Tell us how this all came about.
Yeah, so 1912 is correct, 104 years old now, and is one product. And so LL, who was Leon Woodbean, was the creator of the company. And he was an avid outdoor fisherman and hunter and was out hunting. And at the time, boots were all leather. And when you went out in the slogging around in New England, your feet got wet and the leather eventually soaked through. And he had this idea of taking a rubber bottom and attaching it to a soft, sort of supple leather upper so that the leather would actually mold around your leg and the rubber bottom would keep your foot dry, and molded them together and created the Maine hunting shoe, which became the bean boot. And the lore, which is true, was he made 100, and I think 99 of them were returned because they leaked and the stitching wasn't correct. And so we went back in and tried to figure out how to attach the leather to the rubber in a better way. And that product then became the beginning of the company. He opened then the store in Freeport, which was just for hunters and fishermen. It actually at the time was a lot of third-party brands, so it wasn't all L.L.Bean brands. He had created his boot. The element of our guarantee, of satisfaction guarantee, comes from the lore of those first boots were returned and they weren't satisfactory, and he worked till he got them right. And then he opened the retail store, which was, again, for hunters and fishermen. And it was a lot of people who were coming up from New York and up from Boston, going deep into the Maine woods, deep into Acadia and some of the national parks, which weren't national parks at the time. And they would stop in and buy their supplies on their way north. And hunting and fishing, as anybody who's a hunter or fisherman knows, everything's early in the morning. So he got tired of people coming in and ringing the bell at 5 or 3 in the morning to say, I need a fly, or I need ammunition, or I need whatever it was. So we started just leaving the store open, having it open 24 hours a day.
And I believe it's only closed, 4 times since whatever year that was, in decades and decades?
That's correct. Yeah, and it's true. So the Freeport campus, there are no locks on the doors. And it's only closed 4 times. So it was for LL's funeral. It was for the death of JFK. There was a fire in Freeport in 1981 that closed a lot of the retail stores in the area, and I think either out of solidarity or other, the store was closed. And then when our sort of second founder, Leon Gorman, passed away just about a year ago, the store was closed as well.
But otherwise, open the whole time. Are people coming in the night still? Yeah?
They are, yeah. I mean, everybody's got their own habits, and it's amazing. The store is actually fairly busy through the overnight, 2, 3 in the morning. You get a lot of new parents who are trying to get their babies to fall asleep, and they've been out driving around. You get people who are driving, north-south, and are, making the run sort of on either side of traffic, from Boston. But yeah, it's a viable store 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And you mentioned there Leon Gorman, the second founder, and it's kind of he who passed away in 2015. As I was reading up on it, he kind of rebooted, no pun intended, the brand in the 1960s, right? It had sort of fallen, maybe hard times is too strong, but just was sort of lackluster. And then he made a lot of the changes to what we know today.
He did, yeah. So he came out of the Navy and at a very young age took over the business, and there was a multi-generational, I forget, his uncle or somebody passed away early, and the business ended up in Leon's hands quite early. And he took the business, from LL's idea, which the whole business wouldn't have existed without LL's idea, from about a $4 million business up to, when Leon stopped as CEO, it was $1.3 billion. And he is the one who took the company through all of those high growth years, specifically in the 80s and the 90s.
And you yourself became CEO also in 2015. I believe you actually met him right before his passing?
I did, yeah. So the interview process was amazing and fantastic. As you would imagine, L.L.Bean is, they don't take this decision lightly. I'm only the 4th CEO in the history of the company. So it was a long process, a long interviewing process with all the family members. And my final set of interviews were with all of their generation 3, so that's third generation. They're all in their 70s, and I interviewed each one of them with one of their children as a group interview. And Leon was my final interview about a month before he passed away.
And you talk about the family ownership. How important do you think that's been? We talk a lot on the show about privately owned companies versus publicly owned companies. How much of a difference do you think that makes, being family owned and privately owned?
I think it makes all the difference in the world. So the Beans and the Gormans are the families that own Bean now, and everything that we do is based on a long outlook. When you're working for a company that's 104 years old, we don't make short-term decisions, and the family doesn't put pressure on the business to make short-term decisions. The goal is to stay a viable business for as many generations to come as possible. There's also just a really interesting business philosophy, which I'd love to share, which is just and Leon and the family put this in place a long time ago, which is the stakeholder philosophy, which is what Bean operates under, and it is a clear indication of the family ownership. And the stakeholder philosophy is that between all of our stakeholders, so our employees, our customers, our suppliers, the community, or the environment, no one stakeholder should benefit to the detriment of another. And that's amazingly enlightened for a business. And so when we are making decisions, and that stakeholder philosophy is led from the family and from the family values, to make sure that, as the business is growing, we're treating our communities very well, that we're treating our suppliers with real fairness, that we're making the right decisions. If we make a customer decision that's not going to negatively impact our employees in some way. And I think all of that comes from that family grounding in the business.
All right, we're going to take another break. We come back, we're going to talk more with Steve Smith, President and CEO of L.L.Bean, about the company and its future. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. We are talking today about L.L.Bean, the famous Maine outdoor company. We're talking to their fairly new CEO and president, I got that backwards, president and CEO, Stephen Smith. And I want to actually show Steve a new ad you guys have put out just in recent months. And I think it seems to capture kind of what you're aiming for as you start your era of running the company. Let's take a listen to that so people can see.
When did we stop valuing things that get better over time? When did disposable become our default? At L.L.Bean, we didn't stop. And we never will. When you buy something from us, we want you to like it for a long time. We make products that perform off-trail, on-trail, in the backcountry, or just out back. Because nature never disappoints, and neither do we.
New ad there from L.L.Bean, and I love the footage of the guy on the river alone. And talk about, he probably would be at the store at 3 a.m. before he goes out fishing. So talk about, that clearly you guys are positioning yourself. There is a lot of disposable. Companies don't even tell us to get things repaired anymore. They just say, just buy a new one. Yeah. You guys clearly trying to go against that.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said earlier, there's lots of trends that sort of come and go and hit fashion, and fast fashion has hit the country and the world in quite a way of people thinking that a $7 shirt is okay and I can wear it once and throw it away. And we just don't believe in that philosophy. And the stuff that we make, we want it to last for as long as it should last, and even longer than that. And then we want customers to be satisfied with that, and defining satisfaction as to, if they're not satisfied, you bring it back and we'll replace it. But it's very much a reaction to things shouldn't be disposable. And when you buy something, as disposable income is tight for people, when you're spending your money on something, you want to know that it's going to last, and you want to know that the company behind it is going to stand behind it, and that's behind it. The other thing about the ad is just, it's beautiful. It's our creative team put that together, and it's just incredibly inspirational. On the other side, it's just, we want to inspire and enable people to get outdoors, just get fresh air. And there's some lines in there of, whether it's backcountry or in your backyard. and just getting out into your backyard and enjoying the fresh air. That's
getting off screens maybe for a little
exactly.
while. Yeah.
Get off a screen and get outside. And there's so many great visuals in that ad, which I love. Of just again trying to inspire people to get outside.
Hey, when I said you were coming on, and you kind of allude to this there, people said to me, ask them how they can let folks return things long after they bought them if they get a rip in it or something like that. I mean, that is unusual to have. Usually it's like 3 months and there's a bunch of lawyer stuff on it so that you can't actually return whatever you came up with. That is not how you guys handle that.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a hassle-free returns process. So people determine when or if they're satisfied with something and they return it. The vast majority of customers are great about it. They don't abuse it. They don't take advantage of it. And most people, the typical return is somebody has bought something and it doesn't fit correctly, and they want to get a different size or a different color, and that's the vast majority of our returns. But we want people to know that we stand behind something, and if they want to come in and they're not satisfied after 5 or 10 years, then we'll take it. There is abuse, and it's frustrating, and it is a hard component of our business to manage because it is very expensive. And so we are continuing to do things to try to remove the fraud component of it, or the people who aren't doing it sort of in the best interests of themselves or the company. But it's the proof that we stand behind our product.
And another thing you've been pushing is this thing called ODS. What is this?
Yeah, so Outdoor Discovery School. I appreciate you asking that. Obviously, we open the store tomorrow here in Rhode Island.
Taking this mid-2015, yep.
Yeah.
Say 16, sorry.
Yeah, 2016, yep. Outdoor Discovery School is it's our intention of getting people out into the out of doors and learning how to do things. So we do fly fishing lessons, kayaking, stand-up paddleboard, archery, and it is very low cost, very easy entry into these sports. It's with our own trained associates, so our people will actually do all the training and take people out. And it's fantastic. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who go through the ODS courses, and some of them are just a couple of hours, some of them are a full day, and they learn how to do and use the equipment that they have bought, or then usually they will buy after they've done it. And it's a big component of our brand, the experiential side of our brand at our retail stores.
Your brand also is just so tied in with the state of Maine. I know I've said that a couple of times. There was a great quote from the former governor of Maine, was once quoted as saying, "Is Maine Maine because of Bean, or is Bean Bean because of Maine?" It's a pretty unique relationship, do you think?
It is a very unique relationship, and it's the DNA of the brand. And because we're 104 years old and the company was built with people coming and going from Maine, and Maine as a recreation hub for hunting and fishing and camping, it is a legitimate question. And I know Governor McKiernan asked it sort of in a philosophical way, but it's a really great question. And we talk about it and we sort of laugh about it quite a bit. And those Maine roots, they drive everything that we do. All of our merchants and product developers, they are out in Maine using all of this equipment in the market and seeing, does it perform? It's one reason why we can guarantee it, because the people that are using it, if you can survive in Maine, you can survive anywhere when it comes to outerwear and packs and boots, because it's wet and it's cold and you have all 4 seasons. So it's a great link between the state and the brand.
We only have about a minute left, so close it up. As you start to really sink your teeth in as CEO, what's your top priority, would you say, or what's your guiding light on this as you move forward?
Yeah, so probably 2 things. Number one is I would like us to get back and focused on product. So L.L.Bean was built around individual and iconic products, so where's the bean boot or the boat and tote. And we have gone out into a lot of different channels with a lot of different products, and I would like us to get focused back on some new, big, iconic products, and really becoming a product-focused brand is really important.
30 seconds.
Yep. And then, again, sort of shifting the culture a little bit and just getting people more empowered so that we can move a little bit quicker. So it's very much an internal process I'm working through, but shifting our culture so that people are more empowered to be able to make decisions in their role, so that we can be a little bit quicker and a little bit faster.
Get those boots under the Christmas tree,
you
right?
Got it. Absolutely.
All right, Steve Smith, President and CEO of L.L.Bean, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you for joining us for the conversation. L.L.Bean, you can now find them in Cranston, or of course you can head up to Freeport day or night. Only 4 times in about a century they've been closed, so they're probably going to be open when you get up there. See you again next week here on Executive Suite.